So we're just going to go through assessment task 1 for cluster 2, just the written questions. Here we've got question 1, describe the chain of infection. You could do this in dot point form if you wanted to, or 3 or 4 sentences. That would be more than enough. Question 2, describe the key modes of disease transmission and give examples. Again, you've got 3 points here to make either a couple of dot points for each or a couple of sentences, whichever one you'd prefer. What factors increase someone's susceptibility to infection? We've gone over this lots of times in the first 2 face-to-faces already, so you should be able to just list these as the things we've gone through to make someone more susceptible to infection. Again, can be dot points. When should soap and water rather than alcohol-based hand rub be used for hand hygiene? Again, this could be 1 sentence. Procedure when following the care for someone with gastro. Again, a couple of sentences or 3 or 4 dot points, whichever one you'd prefer. Define is the next one. Define the following terms. Again, you've got 3 terms here to define, a couple of sentences for each. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Match the symbols with the safety precaution. 4 things you would do. Again, dot points, 4 things you'd do if you found a fire in a bin. 3 situations where additional precautions for transmission of infection should be used. So you've got 3 situations, you've got 3 boxes there. You could just literally put 1 or 2 points per box. What effect does stress have on your mind or body? You could put any number here, but probably a minimum of, you could put 4 or 5 here for body and 4 or 5 for mind. 2 key pieces of legislation. Again, you could just do a couple of sentences, list the legislation in a couple of sentences. List 1 or more OH&S authorities. Again, you could do 1 or 2. List 5 hazardous manual handling tasks. Look, there's probably a dozen you could list, but you only have to list 5. What are your OH&S rights and responsibilities? When you get to this question and you've done all of your reading, you'll actually see you could lead these statements with the right to this and the right to that and the responsibility to this or that. And there's probably about 5 or 6 there you could list. What are your legal rights in regard to the Fair Work Act? So again, 5 or 6 points. You could put that in dot point form. Where were we up to? 16. How can stress affect the behaviour of patients? Again, just list, 6 or 7 things that can describe how a stress can affect the behaviour of patients. These can be dot points. What's the difference between harmless micro and a pathogen? Again, a couple of sentences. 18, difference between colonisation, infection, disease. A sentence for each. Difference between being a carrier and being acutely ill. Again, a couple of sentences for each. 20, define. So again, you've got fungi, bacteria. You've got those 4 things there. So for each pathogen, list 2 conditions. So again, define it in a few words, and then a couple of conditions that you can list as going with those infections. And that's it.